Good morning, everybody. John Spiegel here with GAI Insights. Great to be with you all. We got Adam Rapport, Paul Ankaj-Luda, and a special guest, Karen Pespisa, who is got an amazing gig where as an expert conversation designer for the Gemini UX team. She's a contractor to them in terms of figuring out their next level of dialogue, which I think is central, right? We're now going into the dialogue economy, went from the search economy to the dialogue economy. So Karen, lovely to have you.
Thank you, and thanks for having me this morning.
All right, we got lots going on in the world of AI as usual. Ankaj, could you start us off with the first article, please? What's going on in the world of AI?
Okay, the first one that we have for today comes from Anthropic, and it is titled Introducing Agent Skills.
All right, yeah, new capability here. What do you think, Luda?
Yeah, so these skills how they call it, are modular packs of instructions, scripts, the various resources that you can put together and reuse. And they already exist, really, but now Anthropic lets you put your own, and it can capture your way of looking at particular things with your specific industry knowledge or your way of doing something. So, and they can be gotten to dynamically, meaning runtime, and so to save space and be performance efficient. I like this. This is really very different from what OpenAI introduced as an agent kit. This was more process oriented and the like. This is more depth industrial depth oriented. So I think it's an important news. It's a very different direction that Anthropic is introducing.
All right. So Luda making the case for important. What do you think you're at?
I'll actually push back a little, Luda. As I dug deeper under Agent Kit, along with Agent Kit, there's also the concept there of what they're calling the agent store. And people are going to be able to effectively make apps that people can then add. And as I understand it, that's going to be very much like these skills. They're going to be sort of custom packages of capabilities that people can install or apply to have an agent then sort of draw from, almost like tools. I agree it's important. It's probably worth flagging that now the two main competitors are both moving in this direction. It's definitely something to be more aware of in terms of sort of these toolkits and the capabilities for others to start developing what until now they were keeping under the hood as capabilities for themselves.
I agree with you, Adam. I think Agent Kit could be made into skills, right? It's not the positioning the OpenAI provided when they put it out there. It was more streamlining flows, putting together the orchestration of agents.
It's more the agent store itself that puts the emphasis on the equivalent of the skills.
Right, but you could capture what we're talking about here with skills for Anthropic, for sure. And it's the movement in that direction that I think is important.
So you're sitting in important there, Adam, as well?
Yeah, John.
All righty, Karen, what do you think?
You know, I like any time that an LLM is put into an agentic context. I really enjoy when they can take actions on behalf of the user. And this is a strong step forward for Anthropic, which already had many ways to kind of overtake your screen and do actions for you. I think, I'll reserve my, super enthusiasm until I see them in practice and get to play with them myself. But I do agree with the team here that it's an important announcement, simply because it's another step toward the trajectory of making AI agentic and as a result, more useful to people and businesses.
All right, Paul. We're heading for optional with you here. What do you think?
No, quadruple optional. So one, it's a product announcement. Two, at least in my view, we're dealing with the AI leader who's at a company, a B2B leader here, and we've talked with dozens of these companies here, and those secureable employee chat options are looking at it. Number one, Microsoft Copilot, and if not that, ChatGPT, and maybe for the 2% of them out there who are Gemini or workspace users, Gemini here. I not have heard a single company that is talking about using Claude Teams or Enterprise. I know they got some big deals with the Deloitte, but that's all distribution. So because of no one uses this, and because of the product announcement, triple optional.
All right, Ankash. Where are you coming in on this?
I was important on this one, John. I think it's a really good concept, but I'm just a bit skeptical about how they will implement it properly because from what I understand, once you create those skill profiles, then it's up to Claude to select those skills profile when it is working on something. So not sure if Claude will be using the right set of profiles or how that works. So as Karen mentioned, till the time we use it for ourselves, I think still an important announcement, not an optional one.
But even then, Ankaj, if I'm a company, I want the skills inside my firewall, inside my control.
That's what this produces. This what it does. This what skills are. They are within the firewalls for sure.
All right. Well,
I guess one thing I'll add, John, though, is just last week or maybe the week before, we talked about the deal between Microsoft and Anthropic, because they're going to start wanting to bring Claude in to do their PowerPoints. So hold that space because we're going to probably see this in Copilot as a capability very quickly.
Absolutely, and AWS integrates, and most of our AWS cases, if you go back, actually use Anthropic versus other models. So I would still say that this is an important movement on behalf of both OpenAI and Anthropic, signaling that you can now store these good agents aside and use them dynamically. I think it's an important move. I really do.
All right. I think we've beaten this one to death. I'm going to go for important on this one because of Claude's deep, as we've seen from the data from RAMP and so forth, Claude's deep use in technology. And I will use the mode of democracy, which is the averaging of the mediocre. And here we are. So democracy wins on this one. Next.
Okay, moving on to the next one. This one comes from VentureBeat, and it talks about Microsoft's new announcement where they have launched Hey Copilot voice assistant and autonomous agents for all Windows 11 PCs.
Yeah, boy, Microsoft, the giant awakes here in terms of, a huge set of announcements. What do you think, Karen?
I think this is really huge, and let's break it down. Basically, Microsoft introduced three main things that affect all Windows 11 PCs globally. This is rolling out this week. So this is something to watch out for as it takes hold of your OS. You obviously can turn it off. It's optional. However, what they're doing, Microsoft introduced a first Copilot voice, which lets you interact with your machine in voice to voice, speech to text, text to speech, which is really what they have found increases adoption in their own company. So Microsoft's research internally says that people use their AI capabilities twice as much as if they just had text capability, if they use it twice as much with voice. So this is quite interesting. The wake word for this is Hey Copilot, very similar to some of the other voice-to-voice devices out on the market. And it really works across your Windows PC. It also works in a sandbox. So it can work alongside you as you work on other things. So you can set it to task. And we were just talking about agentic uses in the enterprise. But at the moment, Microsoft's whole announcement kind of centered toward consumer use. And I think that's probably where, a big adoption, lever will take place. The second piece that is part of this Copilot voice initiative is Copilot Vision. So now, similar to what Anthropic did about 6 months ago, Microsoft can now take control, and the AI can see what's on your screen and then work with you on a voice-to-voice capacity to take actions on your behalf. So this is quite interesting. I'm dying to use it. I've been a Windows user for decades, and I think this is going to be a really interesting use case. the cool thing for me is that it can perform tasks that I ask it naturally. And this is what I do when I'm chatting with GPT in my car when I have to drive my kids around. So now chatting with the PC will be, probably more annoying to my family. As Microsoft pointed out, it might be more annoying to people in shared workspaces. However, it could be very useful. So we'll have to see, on the adoption with this one. There are other, smaller pieces of the announcement. This will be used in gaming. This will be used for specific actions for companies and for personal consumer use. So, all in all, I rate this as important simply because it's more consumer focused at the minute. It's unclear what the impact on enterprises will be.
Awesome. So you're going for important, not essential in this one.
I do. I think it's such an unproven tech that we, haven't seen really, take hold in enterprises to date. So that's why my hesitation on rating it important.
All righty. What do you think here, Adam?
I think from reading it and preparing for this until now, I've gone from important to essential, back to important, and back to essential. And what's interesting enough for me is again, it's this concept which is buried a little deeper in there. In their framework, what they talk about is agent accounts. And that's something that I actually heard about. One of my colleagues was just over at Microsoft's global partner event in Redmond, and they were talking about the emphasis on this and that starting to create the concept of both your digital and your physical workers. And so in similar ways, it says you'll have separate user accounts in Windows under which agents can operate. So you will license your Office suite for an agent to use, just like you would use it for an employee. And this is really the first people are hearing of that. So there's a lot more going on, I'd say, under the hood here with this announcement beyond just, hey, Copilot. I actually enabled it today. It was already there in my settings within Copilot for the voice. Interestingly enough, at first I was like, well, I had it try and do something. It was talking to me. It wasn't very intelligent. But then later I was wondering what the weather was going to be tomorrow. And I realized I could literally just ask my PC now. And the penny dropped in terms of how quickly I think the adoption of voice and the ability to just be doing something and stay in the flow, which a year and a half ago, OpenAI promised us with GPT 4.0 in their demo of it. And we still haven't gotten it. We still haven't gotten the voice assistant that allows you to stay in the flow with your work and be productive. And Microsoft just turned that on hundreds of millions of PCs, which is massive news.
Yeah, I'm where you are. I think this is essential. I mean, a huge set of announcements. I think this whole notion of moving toward voice interface in a post-text world. I think it's unfortunate because the information density actually goes down and all that stuff. But whatever, we're conversational human beings. What do you think? And we have to pick up the pace a little here. What do you think, Luda, Ankaj? I'm headed for essential on this one.
I am absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. We've been talking about voice as a user interface. We've been talking about agentic integration and computer integration. This is so what they're doing is the new operating system built around AI capabilities. So it's not only that they're introducing vision and introducing the computer vision and voice, right? They're putting it that it can be triggered in any part of what you're doing, at any point in whatever you're doing. So this is an new operating system, and that is essential. It's essential for people to know.
And it's only from Microsoft. It's not like they have any customers.
Exactly.
Essential, John.
All right, essential it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've been going around the track kind of slow here. We're going to pick up the pace a little. Next.
Okay, the next one is a research paper which is titled The Art of Scaling Reinforcement Learning Compute for LLMs.
Yeah, fascinating here. This whole analysis of other power laws and reinforcement learning. And what do you think here, Adam?
Optional. So it's some interesting research. It'll be super useful. I don't know. I haven't heard of many enterprises in terms of adoption and maturity where at the point where they're actually training their own models, doing reinforcement learning, It's certainly where everyone wants to get to, and by the time they get there, this will probably be pretty much stock standard best practice. But for the AI leader who, as Paul said, is just trying to figure out what they're going to use for an enterprise chatbot, this is not something they really need to be digging into.
All right, so a hearty optional on this one. What do you think, Karen?
I'd have to agree with optional. I think that, this is a very tech-centric paper. It's great, for the eng teams, but I'd have to agree with optional.
All right, we got an optional. Luda.
And apologies, I will just say a little bit about what the research is as well, which is basically the concept that over time, as you add more and more compute, the effectiveness of reinforcement learning, you need to be able to calculate and predict how effective it's going to be. And they're doing research into the predictability as it scales, which as you calculate costs and what it'll, the expenses around building and training models, that's going to be something very important to know. But yeah, it's still optional, as I said.
Yeah, Luda, where are you on this?
Yeah, optional.
Paul?
Optional.
Ankash?
Option, John.
All right, let me just take 2 seconds to make the case for important.
Let's make it important, John. We know where you're going on this.
No. I think that we've seen the shift to I think reinforcement learning as a concept is people do not appreciate just how important this is. Because when you look at the AlphaGo and AlphaFold and so forth, a lot of the value that was created in those models came from reinforcement learning, and so the economics of reinforcement learning, I think, are going to be in direct proportion to, or going to be a key indicator of the productivity of this, especially in science-based areas and areas where the objective function is clearly definable. And the economics of that reinforcement learning, I think, are going to be core to what the software economics are going to be against the performance curve for any of these things. So, and this is the first research version, if the paper is correct in its survey, this is the first research that looks at the power laws of, if there are any, reinforcement learning. And so that to me this is a core performance function in the context of what these models can do, tying it to economics as represented through compute demand. So I don't know. I mean, for me, it's yeah, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going Silicon Valley here.
But John, this is so convoluted in this article. It is so deep into formulas. I think, and even to pull out what they have done really in one sentence is difficult. So you're right, but this is not necessarily the article to recommend to the leaders to decipher.
I don't know. The robots are pretty good at helping. I use the robot to explain some of this stuff to me, and I don't know. I agree with you. It's definitely written by humans because it's too opaque. But the robots can help explain it. I don't know. I'm going Peter Thiel, Silicon Valley. The hell with democracy. We're going important.
Okay, moving on. Yeah. Moving on to the next one. This one comes from Google, and it is titled "How a Gamma Model Helped Discover a New Potential Cancer Therapy Pathway."
Yeah, amazing, huh? What model here, creating cancer therapy stuff. What do you think, Luda?
Yes, I rated it, unfortunately, as optional, but it is a tremendous example of how you can get new science insights and new treatments for, like in this case, cancer, with carefully training the models. It's unbelievable. But for the leader out there who is buried into trying to implement, I think it's optional. So the Google built a specialized model they call very wonderfully C2S-scale 27B. It's a 27 billion parameter model that learns the language of cells. So they fed it the cell level information and sort of like how genes and proteins interact, and then fine-tuned it on public cancer and immune response data, and asked it to predict what combination of drugs will wake up the tumors so that it's visible to the immune system. Yeah. And the model predicted a combination of two things, interferon and, I'm not sure I can pronounce it right, silmitasertib. silmitacetab. And they tested it in the lab, and it's a new pathway to treat cancer potentially. So this is like unbelievable, but optional.
All right, unbelievable but optional. What do you think, Akash?
Optional for the AI leader, John.
All right, Karen, where are you?
I think it's important. I listen to every podcast that Sam Altman and Demis Hassabis do, and I feel like, drug therapy exploration is one of the key things that's going to help the world in terms of getting rid of and treating some of these terrible diseases, including the one in this article. And I think this has affected so many people globally that the possibility that LLMs can come up with drug therapeutics and preventative measures and cures for some of the world's most terrible diseases, something everybody should be aware of. So that is why I think this one is actually important. Maybe not in the business context, but sitting in Boston where there's a huge biotech set of companies and strengths, I think like this is definitely something that they would like to get their hands on sooner than later and let their algos and their researchers really look for things in their specific drug domains.
All right, I'm making a case for important here. What do you think?
I would rate it essential, Karen, because as an impact to society, this is massive. But as I said, leaders are not quite there yet.
Well, that's part of our job, isn't it? To point to that. Anyway, what do you think here, Paul?
No, I'm with Luda. The unbelievable, everyday miracle, but optional. It's essential for life sciences. But I'm also finding that AI leaders talking about life sciences in a non-life science company is, in general, not moving executives. It feels too far. It feels like science fiction, too far ahead.
Different industry. Okay, Adam, where are you on this?
Karen was swaying me, but yeah, I'd probably. I'm on the fence.
He's on the fence.
I'm not. I mean, for our leader and what they're trying to go through, this is noise. But Karen is absolutely right, and Luda is at the same time. So.
All right, important is still not required reading. I'm going important on this thing for two reasons. One, it's unbelievable for society, but for our AI leaders, the notion of, hey, when we get into domains where we're building these models on things that are not words, we're going to have new insights. And the fact that you can do this in silico, because it was trained on non-verbal data, this in silico experimentation is, incredibly important. So I'm going to view this as important. All right. Next, Akash.
Okay, moving on to the next one. This one comes from MIT, and it talks about how method teaches GenAI models to locate personalized objects.
All right, and we do want to be mindful of time here. So, Karen, give us
sure.
This is on this.
Right. So at the get-go, I'll say optional, just to give it the headline here, but this is research out of MIT and IBM Watson's AI lab. And what they did was set out to train a vision model to identify a specific object repeatedly in different contexts in any scene in any background. And if you think about the implications of this with self-driving cars, you realize, the magnification that this really could have and the utility that could happen. To do it, they did two things. They did vision tracking, where they tracked an object, say a dog, through walking through different scenes. And then they sliced out different frames of that video and then trained the model on those frames to recognize a specific dog, like your pet dog, not just any dog, which is what typical vision recognition looks like in vision language models. The second thing they did was teach the model how not to cheat, because, as I just mentioned, vision models are so great at identifying objects now and labeling. They've come a long way in the past few years. However, identifying a specific dog, cat, or lion is very different from identifying any of them. So I think, oh, and the cool way they did this was they named specific creatures by different random names, like Charlie. So that caused the LLM not to cheat. And that, as a prompt engineer for me, triggered a couple of different light bulbs. So I love the way they did it. I do think it's optional if you're in the vision space, in the computing and robotics, the robotics space, this is, or, the self-driving automobiles. I think this is definitely essential. However, this one is optional, and the paper will be presented at the International Conference on Computer Vision coming up.
All righty. So optional, interesting area. Yeah, I think it's kind of like a reality vector. If you can take a sample over some set of frames and, anyway, it's interesting. Optional, what do you think here, Luda? Optional?
Yeah, optional, but it's a huge impact on like security cameras. The software behind it, so it can track specific people if you are looking for a specific person. So I think it's a massive impact, but not generically. Yeah, so optional.
Yeah, surveillance state gets a shot in the arm here. Paul, what do you think?
Another everyday miracle that's optional.
Adam?
Optional.
Akash.
Optional, John.
All right, big O it is next and last.
Okay, the last one that we have for today comes from Word Labs, and it is titled RTFM, a real-time frame model.
Yeah, Akash, go for it.
So basically what they've done is they have launched this real-time frame model, which you can think of as a real-time generative world model. So it can generate and render 3D videos on the fly while a person interacts with it. What's really interesting with this one is they have done this earlier as well. We have seen some examples, but what they have done here is that you can render those interactive environments on a single NVIDIA H100 GPU. So basically, this one has been designed around three main ideas, which is efficiency, so it can run fast, scalability, so as you add more GPUs, it can improve naturally with compute, and persistence. So basically, the word which is already created doesn't vanish when you go back. So I think this is an interesting development for world models. We know everybody, including Google, XAI, and others, they are developing these word models because they can help with robotics, simulation, and a lot of other tasks. So I was important on this one, John.
Important. All right. World model getting built out. Incredibly new scalable thing. Adam.
I think it's just a little too forward-looking and not quite relevant enough for our audience to be an important for me. Some pretty cool research, and mostly it's around the efficiency gains. They talk down at the bottom, there's what they call splats and RTFMs, and they have some comparisons of the two of them next to each other. And splats are Gaussian splats, and it's a way to basically interpret 3D space with AI to build world models from vision, from images. And this is just a much faster, much more efficient method of getting very similar quality and persistence. So it's a big leap forward in that space, but probably optional for the AI leader.
All right, Karen, Adam's making it an everyday miracle here. What do you think?
It reminds me, as a marketer, and I've been embedded in a giant enterprise marketing org for over a year prior to my recent switch. And I can tell you that this is a case of video killed the static ad star. We understand from LinkedIn that video is the modality of the future. The algo at LinkedIn is pushing video content more than any other. And I think other social platforms are following suit. I think this is really cool to a lot of people. It has impacts on Hollywood. It has impacts on, filmmakers. It has impacts on traditional broadcast media. And I think, there's a huge upturn and groundswell happening in video content that it's good to be aware of. But I agree, with Ankash, this is an optional piece for business executives.
No, Akash said important. So
important. I think I'm gonna actually apologies, Ankash. I'm gonna go optional for business leaders, but I think it's like a super cool, miracle every day, as Paul points out.
All right. So we got Luda and Paul. What do you think?
John, you have my chalk vote.
All right, Luna.
John, I actually think it's a breakthrough in persistence. So they're able, and the speed and persistence of the model make it an important breakthrough. So what you're able to do is build a 3D model and actually turn around and it's the same. And the speed of that movement and ability to follow is incredible. So I agree that it's optional, but for that, I'm thinking it's important to know if we can play with it.
I think in all that you said important, but I'm going to take it as important. Important it is. All right, that's the last one. Announcements. Let's see. Paul just left us. Oh, bummer.
He would have said quadruple optional.
No. Yeah. Paul said I have his vote. I'm just trying. I don't know who our learning lab is on Monday. We're going to have a learning lab on Monday because I thought Paul would be here telling us what it is. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. And so join us 7 o'clock Eastern U.S. time from 7 to 8. And how to build a docudrama. Sorry, GCA Creative is using Sora 2 to build a docudrama. That's what it's about. I remembered it was cool. All right. Any other announcements? All right, Karen. Thanks again for joining us, and good luck on what I think the science of dialogue is going to be central to interface. And you're right. You're right there in the crucible of one of the major players and all that. So I love it. All right.
Thank you, John.
Everybody.
And today we have 1 essential, 3 importance, and 4 importance, and 1 optional.
There you go. All right. So lots of good reading this weekend. Have a good one and have a great AI weekend. See you. Talk to you all Monday. Bye-bye now.